Bernie Flowers and your book, Black Values Matter, that I may or may not have gotten a shout out in. Have I made it? I think I have. I think I can wrap up the podcast now. I've made it into a book, and that's my ego getting flattered. But Mr. Flowers, please introduce yourself, my friend.
Tommy, Bernie Flowers, your audience should be familiar with me. I'm a retired lieutenant colonel that's tired of corruption. And I just decided after 34 years behind the federal fence, either in the military or as in DOD, that it's time to start fighting. We've got a lot of mess here. I just wrote a book, as you know, I'm going to talk about it. Black Values Matter. If you look at this thing here, I take that out to local speaking events, and there's a QR code right here, and people can order it off of Amazon. I'm working on building a website. I'm even thinking of that angry old soldier that's tired of people dying in Baltimore and inner cities. And I just, I ran for Congress a while back ago, didn't win, but you don't win generally your first time out. And am I going to run again? Well, there's some people here in Howard County that think I should. So we'll see. But the bottom line is I'm just an American guy trying to do the right thing.
So what did specifically lead to this? I mean, in the book, and yeah, I'll put it in the description. It's a fairly short read. You can knock it out. You can knock it out in a day or two. But what did lead to this, aside from, really, like you said, you've seen battle zones or battlefields far more hospitable than Baltimore?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing is, I get into Baltimore pretty often. And the reason I do that is because I've become somewhat politically active. I've got friends there, and they're afraid. People are losing their children. Also, I despise racism in all of its forms. I grew up in the South where people are innocent and all white people are bad. When I was in the military, I was raised in the military to believe that we had a meritocracy here. And I believe that our country should be a meritocracy. We are America and we should be together. But in order to get that point across to people, minorities included, sometimes you got to tell some truths and you got to remind people that there is no specific, one race that has a lock on racism. And I also believe that some people, the 1%, have been using racism to turn us against each other to make profit. And I
Sure,
got a real problem with that.
sure. And it's could you maybe go into that, explain the idea of racism in all of its forms? Because I mean, the very sense anything at
Anything.
all. Whether it's they're better cookers, they're better at sports, or they're dumber, or they're meaner, or they're assholes, or they're whatever. It Anything
Yeah.
by definition based on a broad generalization of skin color, no matter what the
Well,
characteristic, is
it's
racism.
just crazy. Yeah. And, if you look in the book, I mean, there's so many examples. All these things rushing through my head. But if you're familiar with the Bible, I know you are, remember the Hebrews. They spent 500 years in captivity. Black people are not the only people that have been put into captivity and held in bondage. All right. If you look at my book, you'll hear or see a chapter where the British government outlawed slavery, if I'm not mistaken, in 1849 in Africa. So, slavery was abolished. And they petitioned the British king to continue slavery because they were going off making war on my ancestors and selling them off to the Americas and wherever they wanted to be sold to. And the issue today is that's where my ancestors come from. And these people, these hegemon people, the Dashante and the Ashanti and the Dahomey, they didn't care what your color was. They didn't care. All they cared about was making money. And that's always been the case. And I think that racism, as we experience it today, is just a veiled attempt to make money by the 1%. They don't care about, your skin color. They don't care about reparations. For example, Mr. Obama, bless his heart, he kind of gave us the impression after running that he would, issue of the day is, as a general rule, I don't believe in it. And I think it makes us weak. But the point is that he gave people the impression, the people who supported him, that he would bring reparations. And here it is 8 years after he was elected, he never did that. And the crux of the issue was he did an interview with Bruce Springsteen in 2021. And Springsteen asked him, hey, so how do you feel about reparations? Well, while I was in office, I did nothing about it. But now I think someone should do something about reparations. I think the word duplicitous comes to mind.
Hmm.
We've been played again. And as roughly maybe 95% of blacks vote Democrat. And so we're voting for our own demise in a lot of cases. And again, everybody's biased. So I say, let's recognize those biases and as an individual, try to overcome those biases. I mean, look at me and you. We talk, we're friends, and we got a lot in common. Is not what Martin Luther King had in mind when he was taking all those um, ass whooping, might say. I hate
Yeah.
to say it, but bottom line, that's not what he had in mind. And by the way, I have an interracial granddaughter. And I was telling you about earlier before we came online about my good buddy Vince Crabb. We went to the desert together. He's my battle buddy, and he is just as white as you.
Yeah.
He saved my life a couple of times.
Yeah.
So if somebody insults him, they've insulted me.
Yeah. And it does kind of seem like it's more of a mode of control than anything. Is at the bottom of it
There
all
you
is
go.
just divide and conquer. I mean, right? I mean, you mentioned in the book
Circus.
LBJ's famous line, and like that was in the '60s. Where are we now? It's been 60 years, and it
And now you've got an entire generation of two generations, actually, and in some cases three of families without a male influence. And let's not forget Mr. Biden, who put so many people in jail with his 1994 crime bill. And now you've got entire generations of families that don't know a male influence. You've divided up the black family, and these kids are out there killing each other because they don't understand what a man is supposed to be like. There's supposed to be restraint and strength, not acting wild and out, as they say.
hmm,
And there's 337 murders in Baltimore last year, and we're on the way. 4 o'clock in the morning, there was a double murder on New Year's Day at 4 in the morning, and so we're well on our way to another 300 a total of 300 plus murders, and that's been going. We got to change the thought process, and we got to change this idea of you don't look like me, so we can't be friends. That's bullshit. Excuse my language. Can I cuss?
you can say whatever the fuck you want, dude.
I love it.
What is the actual way to tackle this? And I've been to Baltimore a handful of times, and it does seem like you talked about it, getting cut off in line and not going to the restaurant, and how many people missed out on a tip, and the government misses out on the tax revenue. I've been a government. I've not. I've been a government. I've been to Baltimore a handful of times. I really have no intention to ever go again, because I just feel like I'm always, no pun intended, but like just around the corner from death. Like that's how it feels when you're there. You get the little notifications on your phone, and it's like point 0.7 miles away, someone was just stabbed in the neck, and you're like, I'm not fucking leaving this house. And when I do leave, it's a beeline to the highway. Is there any actual way to reform Baltimore, or is the monster? Yeah.
And I can't fix it overnight, but awareness is the way to start. There's thousands and thousands of thousands upon good people in Baltimore that are afraid. And there's an old saying, keep your mouth closed in Baltimore. So when things happen, people see things all the time, and they don't turn it into the police because they don't trust the police. And the police force is 800 people down. So in a city that large with 800 minus 800 police officers, there's going to be a lot of crime that goes without seeing. And can I fix it all? Well, we just got to change the attitude. And I look at, like, for instance, Marilyn Mosby. I mean, she's been, former state's attorney, just got voted out. Thank God for that. People commit crimes, and she just lets them off. Huge marijuana bust that the cops, spin. But there seems to be just a malaise going on right now, not just in Baltimore, but in all the major cities, in Chicago, Atlanta, New York, you name it. And the truth is, the way I see it, the George Soroses of the world, and we know who he is, they're encouraging and giving money to these liberal defense attorneys and creating more crime. And I can tell you that, I've driven through Baltimore many, many times. I'll do it again. And, it's routine for me to be there. But these gigantic buildings, buildings built by government funding for the people, and then something happens and the people can't move in. So you got homeless folks running around here in this brand new building with a beautiful facade boarded up. And how come that keeps happening over and over and over again? On the other hand, you've got over in West Baltimore, living it, the Baltimore City Code is Byzantine. They can't make any money off flipping these houses. So people are moving out, and those who can afford to. So the tax base goes down because people don't want to go and invest in Baltimore. So, and it's not just that, it's the inner city all over the United States, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. But yet you got folks like Black Lives Matter saying it's your fault because you're white and you're different than me. And I call a bullshit flag. I say, look, we got to work together. We got to give every individual the benefit of the doubt. And, this idea of just, blaming somebody because they have a different skin color, that's kind of this woke nonsense that seems to be permeated by all this ESG. And a lot of people are low information voters. They don't understand the concept that corporate America got to change the attitude. We got to get some good people, as I say, honest people. We got to get rid of some of this corruption, and it's deeply rooted, going back to the 50s and 60s. And folks got to reclaim their neighborhoods one at a time. And if I can help lead, that's what I'm going to do.
How do you think it keeps perpetuating though? Like why?
There's money and poverty.
Yeah. Well, then why? And I'm just playing the devil's advocate to you. If it seems that the powers that be or that the entrenched financial interests want it, it kind of seems like it's a self-accelerating black hole.
It is a self-licking ice cream cone. And, money is being allocated from the federal government for housing and by helping these particular agencies, some of them out of state, buy these big, apartment buildings. And the apartment buildings become, free fire zones. I mean, you put a lot of people into a bigger, I'm sure you've heard of the big Cabrini Green, their own little piece of Baltimore, as opposed to putting people in apartment buildings where people are afraid to come out because the cops don't want to go into those places once they get inside and get locked down. It becomes dark and scary, and it's not a good place to raise kids, that sort of thing. But yet the real deal is these people that are in charge, these people with all the money, they want people herded into those places like that. And then it just becomes a bad place to live. And there's a lot of good people in Baltimore that are trying to do something about it. But on the other hand, we haven't had a conservative/Republican mayor in Baltimore since 1967. So
Jesus.
why are we continuing to vote for our own demise? That's the problem. Now, it's easy for me to talk. I live in Howard County, which is somewhat semi-rural. I'm 20 minutes away from Baltimore. Howard County is one of the most affluent neighborhoods. America has been very good to me. And now it's time to give back. And I've chosen to do that. And when I talk about this book, if anybody reads it, and a few people have bought it, I've gotten a lot of good 5-star reviews on Amazon. I think I've hit a nerve, and I'm not the only one. People, I was out, I go out to these various speeches and various clubs, and I've done about 3 or 4 of them so far, and I've gotten a lot of positive responses. Did I answer your question?
You have. No. I'm sorry. I'm enjoying listening to you talk.
Well, this is what I'm passionate about, man. I tell you, having seen what I saw, and when I see $100 billion that we count so far going to making war off in the Ukraine, killing people who haven't done anything to us. Yeah, if the Russians are taking over, that's terrible. But we could have solved this without that side of them again. I don't know if I told you the story of I'm in Afghanistan and then I'm in a helicopter and got shot at by a SAM that was held by the Mujahideen from 1976. So they held on to that weapon and almost killed me. And that's when I started waking up. and starting to see that those people at the top of the food chain, they make money off war. War is the most
Mm.
profitable thing that we have, and it's gotta we need to be very careful about going to war and killing off people's children, and we can do better. And making these defense contractors rich is not what I'm into. We can do better.
What is the realistic way to? Because these are all things I agree with, and I think I've just kind of become jaded over 1,000 plus episodes of these, where my mind is almost like what can be stars, like $100 billion to Ukraine, but like what in God's name can I actually do? And whereas you were involved with all of this, like you have a little more, not a little more, you have a much greater understanding of the inner workings of this than I do. I guess I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a bit of a pessimist today.
Don't be a pessimist. I mean, the bottom line is that I understand your concern, and I'm just as cynical as you are. Trust me. I've seen it from the inside. When I was at DHS, the thing that pushed me over the edge was seeing these 3,000 people coming across the border, and our administration acting like it was a good thing, and our border patrol being maligned. These are good people down there trying to do the job, and the folks at DHS at the senior level and at the White House just basically said, I just felt like I needed to do something about it with the background that I had. But don't be cynical. I mean, well, don't think that nothing can be done. We still have good people, and votes do actually count. And but folks need to get involved. Not just me, but me and a crew of ours, we just started Commitment Charm City Incorporated, and it's not a 501c3. We're not here to just raise money. It's what I call a 527. I don't understand it all, but the idea is that we're not trying to raise money. What we're trying to do is audit corporate laws in Baltimore. And there's a lot of laws in place that aren't benefiting the people, and we need to expose those things. I mean, for example, did you know that there was a water crisis in Baltimore just recently?
Yeah.
Right there where I was talking about in West Baltimore, and E. coli suffering the most because they were under a boiled water alert. And
Mm.
that's happening in Flint, Michigan. It happened in Jackson, Mississippi, but specifically here, the federal the Baltimore city government should have done something about that. And we wonder why some people wild out. If you're drinking contaminated tap water, you might be a little angry. And if you got access to a weapon, it might cause a problem. But you got to put these things together. But the thing is that we just, as a whole, the inner city is being failed by the administration, but the people there keep voting for the same Democrats that seem to not care. And Catherine Pugh, for example, she was mayor 2 mayors ago, and she went to jail for 3 years for corruption. Sheila Dixon, she almost went to jail for corruption. Stephanie Rawlings Blake, she that had the Freddie Gray thing
Yeah,
happened on her
I
watch.
recognize that name. Yeah.
Yeah, and she didn't run again. And that are going to do what they say do, and whether they're Democrat, Republican, I don't care. Let's just get some honest people in there, and everybody goes in with good intentions. But for example, the current mayor, what's his name? It's forgettable. But the bottom line is he made a whole lot of campaign promises about reducing crime in Baltimore. And what he did was reduce the number of police officers in Baltimore. And that hasn't worked very well. And I mentioned a lot in the book, but we got to band together. We need to get more people involved in the municipal government, more people, good candidates, more folks, being informed voters. Everybody can't run for Congress. Everybody can't run for mayor, but don't get your news from Oprah and what do you call it? The View, and a lot of people do.
Earth to do a snowstorm while I'm doing a
Oh, yeah.
podcast. I know I don't. It's a lack of respect, is what it is. Could you?
Total lack of respect.
It's a total. It's a spit in my face. But so I apologize. So we have a bit of a delay. So if it looks like I'm cutting you off, that's why. Could you
Technology has limitations.
could you elaborate a little more on the corporate laws that you're auditing? That I don't know why that just kind of caught a spark in my mind.
Well, the truth is that we haven't started. We just had our first meeting um, on Saturday, and I'm no lawyer, but what I do look at as an operator, a military operator, I look at the outside. I look at the output, and again, when kids are being shot in the street, when we have 300 plus murders for on motorcycles, and they're running through traffic lights as if
Mm.
they don't exist. And there's not enough cops to do anything about it. So there has to be some legal way to stop this. And there has to be some legal way to mandate the number of police officers in the metro city. You can't just fire people because, you don't like cops. And then folks don't always understand that in order to maintain law and order, you have to have bodies on the street. And, a lot of these cops are driving 10-year-old vehicles. There should be some mandates to say, okay, we're going to spend money on X, Y, Z, and we're going to take care of basic security first. And I don't know exactly what the mayor of Baltimore is thinking, but the people are not happy. And I live in Howard County. I get it. I'm 20 minutes away, but a lot of the crime that comes into the state, kind of uses Baltimore.
This is kind of, I guess, a simplistic answer, but I mean, is the answer almost just to like ramp up the police force? I mean, because it seems that almost kind of seems like a game of whack-a-mole. Like, well, yeah, if you start using force, then you're going to give people a legitimate reason to hate the police, Whereas now it kind of seems to be a bunch of bunch of commie motherfuckers just defund the police and collapse cities. But on the other end, like you also can't you can't keep like a liberty loving society in bounds by by a police state, by a bunch of SWAT teams riding around in MRAPs. Like, we're not in occupied territory. But and
I
this is
totally agree with you.
like, what is there to do? My simplistic, I guess, one track mind is like, there's a problem, beat the problem. Like roll in the cops, like roll. But that also doesn't. You can't. That's the fine line between like a free society and a safe society. Is like, by that logic, we should have SWAT teams and National Guards on every $100 billion budget. So what is there to what? Not that you have the crystal ball, and I know I'm just throwing impossible questions to you. I might as well also ask you, what's the purpose of life and what happened before the Big Bang? But like, what is there to do about this aside from just my answer is roll in, just quintuple the police force. But that can't be the answer because there's no way that someone else hasn't thought of that, and it's not the answer. You can't just. It works for like establishing a green zone around the embassy in Baghdad. But that's not America.
We have seen, first of all, a great man once said a functioning democracy requires an educated populace.
Yes.
So we're dumbing down people, and they don't know anything any better. Second, as a military person that spent time overseas, I don't want to see cops rolling around with MRAPs. I don't want to see civil liberties taken away. And in the house, a real one.
Sure.
So when your family's together, and so you got these guys running around here. Imagine a big husky guy like yourself. If you haven't had a male influence, you don't know the concept of restraint. You don't understand that you can't just swing on somebody when you become angry.
Yeah.
And so next thing you know, you got these young men who don't know how to be men. They are quick triggered. They're quick to haul off on somebody. And next thing you know, people are dying because of lack of supervision.
Or you're in jail. You never grew up and had a father that pushed back. You've been pushing around your mom.
Yes.
I know me and my three brothers certainly pushed back against my mom. And when push came to shove, Dad came in, and then it was just, he just laid waste, and we all, the power was established. There was a hierarchy. If you don't have that, Best can have my dad to put me in line. I absolutely would have just acted out when I got to college. And then the cops would have arrested me, and they wouldn't give a fuck about I never had a father figure. You don't give a shit. You just broke into this house. You're going to jail. All of a sudden, all of a sudden.
Discipline you, or the state's going to discipline.
Yeah, it's coming one way or another.
There you have it. And so we led Lyndon Johnson and his merry band of social engineers have led an assault on the nuclear family. And now, somehow, some way, we got to get that back. And that's my, you know, that's a starting solution to this whole thing. Set the example, one house at a time. And I'm not perfect, but I can say that my children are reflective of how I raised them. They've done well. You know, they're not in the house, and you know, they got their own jobs doing their the wilding out and staying in your mom's basement until you're 40 and arguing with your parents. That's not going to leave us with a good society in the future. And the demographics are against us, and you know, we just got to do better and just you know, hearts and minds. That's what we're after. Just like in the military, at some point, if you can convince people to do things or at least the way we want them to do them, you don't have to fight them.
Hmm.
And again, there's families 3, 4 generations deep in the city that are, you know, still living off Lyndon Baines Johnson's Great Society programs, and they just simply haven't worked. And we've got to acknowledge that the system is not working for us and change it.
Hmm.
And I'm an advocate for that. Let's make some changes.
It's kind of like that quote about dieting and working out. You can either suffer the pain of discipline or suffer the pain of regret. But either way, you're suffering.
Amen.
Choose which one you want. But you're suffering either way. It's
Yeah.
not. And if the entire country doesn't have one, well, then you have it in the form of another country that comes and runs the table on you.
You know, another thing I wanted to bring up is the concept of victimhood. Our modern society, go back to Lyndon Johnson, go back to this woke ESG stuff. The deal is that we're teaching our children to be victims, and that somebody else is supposed to fix things. And at some point, as an adult, you got to learn that you got to be self-sufficient. I mean, look at you. You're what, 32, 31?
32.
And you're doing your thing. You got a nationally, you know, broadcast podcast thing that I'm very, very proud to be a part of. And people know your name. And some of the people that have been on your podcast, like Dr. McCullough, I mean, who gets in as a guest? You know, wow. That's the first time I'd ever heard of you. And it was because of him.
Oh, all right.
And I was like, that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
And so you're out here doing it. So why are we not streaming your podcast and pontificate? But I am not going to stop there. I'm going to get out and try to make my version of America work and try to bring some people along with me. And that's why I ran for Congress. I was out last week at one of the Republican events and trying to recover the Republican Party, and people saying, hey, you should do this again, you know, and if I can raise enough money, because this is what this book is all about. I don't want to be beholden to some special interest who's going to write me a check, because once they do that, they get behind you.
Yeah.
You're done.
Say goodbye to your soul. Yeah.
Say goodbye to your soul. And I kind of like my soul. So my way is writing this book and trying to get a few people to buy it. And if we can get, you know, enough momentum going, maybe we can make a run. And it's not just being a Republican. I'm a conservative. And I think conservatives are a school and talk about sexual things with kids. And we let them do that. That's not conservatism where I'm coming from. And I'm going to do everything that I can to bring that to a halt. But we got to pay attention, because we are being attacked from those who want to damage our society. And I can tell you that, you know, TikTok, owned by a Chinese company, and they in turn work for the Chinese government. They are not our friends. They're trying to destroy us. They can't beat us militarily, so they'll beat us through information operations. And a lot of people don't understand that. But I do, and you do too.
I think you do need to start a podcast. I really do, because I'm being dead serious, right? Because there's only so much you can say in a book. You can only depend on so many people to read a book. And why would you? I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
Because you're smart and well read.
But I wouldn't want to listen to me talking about something I know nothing about, right? But you are obviously a black guy. You have served in the military. You have taken responsibility for your life, and you have lived and continued to go through Baltimore. I think you need to start a podcast, because there's really only so much you can say in a book. There's really only so much you can, and then even on my show, sure, you can come on my show, but there's only so much you can say in that amount of time. And then there's the constraints of, well, you're on for an hour and you're scheduling it, and you're subject to my whims, and again, even then you start to get these constraints about, well, I got to get it all out in this hour. Not just you, but any guest, right? You have this block of time on this show, I got to get it out. Versus when it's my show, I can just put my feet up and, like, I can walk out any idea I want. And if I don't get the idea out today, I can walk it out a little farther tomorrow. And it might take a week, it might take a year, and I can thread it through as many shows as I want to. And I can just say, I'm just dropping F-bombs this episode. It's mine to make what I want. I think you should start your own, because in the process of fleshing these ideas out and thinking aloud, you will actually start to reach other levels of ideas that you didn't even know you had. But it's only by starting to, like, you have this idea in your mind of, I'm going to talk about an apple, and I really want to talk about this apple. And then you do a show and you finally start talking about the apple. And as you're talking about the apple, you're also talking about the plate that the apple's sitting on. And when you're like, well, hold on, you start talking about plates, and then you start talking about the dishwasher. Then you start talking about, like, the history of plates and porcelain and china, and you go down this whole rabbit hole of elaborating what's really on your mind. And you can often only do that, like anything, through repetition, and through, like, you have maybe, and this is all obviously my humble opinion, that you have maybe just started to scratch the surface of, and you've put it into your book. And we broach it on when you come on my podcast, but even that's limited to what you've been on here 5-6 times. Like, make your own thing, and it will unfold, and you will more eloquently and more efficiently verbalize what's really on your mind. Does that make sense, or am I just screaming like a maniac?
Tommy, if you will advise me, I'm dead serious about it.
I will advise you. I will be your advisor. I will drag you right down into the pits with me.
Well, brother, I appreciate it. Let's shake hands on that one, man. But bottom line is, I really, really, really got to figure out a way to improve the area. I mean, we just put in somebody against me. I was running in Carroll County and doing well, and the Republican Party establishment decided that I wasn't their guy, so they put in not only one but like 4 candidates in, and we all lost to Dutch Rupersberger. We got skunked. We got like 30% of the vote. And I was at one of the Republican clubs back in December, and this lady walked up to me, one of the officers, and she said, "Bernie, you could have won this if our establishment had gotten behind you. You got all the right credentials and you got the right bearing, and they got their head up their ass." And this is a woman talking to me. I didn't know her that well, but I know her well enough to know that she was one of the stalwarts of the party. And in the meantime, we ended up with losing the several legislature seats, and now we got a Democrat governor. But we got to keep the fight up. And I believe that voting helps. I believe that you can still win, but folks have got to get smart. And I'm not saying that you got to be the staunch Republican or anything like that, but we got to protect our kids. We got to protect our schools. If we don't bring our children up the right way, America is doomed. And I see a lot of negative things happening in the school board, a lot of things happening, in the school system that we should be guarding against rather than allowing. I mean, there's what was this book called Gender Queer. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically teaching kids, you can look it up on Amazon. The term is gender queer, and teaching kids how to do its sexual stuff. I mean, not protecting our children from being sexualized. And that's stuff that I'm passionate about. I probably sound like I'm angry. Maybe I am just a little angry. How did we get to this point where our kids can't go to school without being groomed? And a lot of people just send their kids to school and they just say, well, their education is the teacher's fault. Well, there is a need for people to be involved. And here in Howard County, we don't have so much of a problem with that. People are involved. They get involved with the school board, that sort of thing. Great. But in Baltimore, in some of the less affluent areas, not so much. and things are a little bit tougher because people got to work a little harder. They're not running around, with these six-figure jobs and such. They may have to have two jobs in order to make ends meet. But in the meantime, the kids are not getting everything that they need. So it just kind of, if I'm not mistaken, there was like a $10 million deficit in the Baltimore City school systems where they did an audit, and there was $10 million missing. And how can you run a school system where money is missing? And it just gets complicated. I don't know if we have time to explain all of this, but it was in the Baltimore paper. I could send you the results of the audit done by the state auditor. And most people know nothing about that here. And it's happening all over America. And there's just a lot of people that are getting the short end of the stick. And I just wanted to, try to make things as fair as possible for everyone. And another thing, I know I'm talking fast,
No,
and
keep
I'm
going.
not a,
No, keep going.
but the money should follow the kid. The term school choice. The school boards in most of these areas, most of the liberal school boards are totally against school choice. And I think that parents should be able to take that, let's say $22,000 per year, that is be able to take your other kid to another place, but make sure that that money follows them. And
Yeah.
competition is a good thing when it comes to schools.
I think again, this is why you need to start a show. Is even something like them flooding the field with a bunch of other candidates. That's you that's being forced to play on their field
Yeah,
versus you can kind of almost do extra credit work, if you will. You can just go build your own platform. Like that's the reason why like the powers that be hate Rogan so much, because he's not beholden to anyone. He's not on a network. He's just fucking talking to
love
whoever he
that guy.
wants to. Yeah, and it's like,
He's my second favorite podcaster.
yeah, that's oh stop it. But that is something that you can do. Is you can kind of just hold a middle finger, work within their systems. You can just say fuck you and talk about whatever you want. And if it's the popular idea, then people will follow you. And like you don't need to
I believe
worry
so.
about whether or not the system gets behind you, whether or not the GOP establishment gets behind you, or whatever you want to run as. It's you can go out and I mean, it really is sort of like a meta manifestation of everything you're talking about. Of taking the reins on your own, building your own thing, learning it as you go. It's a baptism by fire. You got to figure out how to use a webcam and a microphone and you find guests and you get better. And the early episodes are just clunky and awkward, but you work it out and you smooth it out. It is sort of a kind of putting your money where your mouth is. I think you should do it because you can circumvent. You interview the
Yeah,
investigator, or you go find someone that actually works in one of these apartment buildings, and they find it and they show it to people. You can get the actual people on the ground. Like that's what I do when I want to talk about something. I don't run my stupid mouth about it. I go and I get someone that's directly involved with it. I go get a Delta Force guy or a doctor or whatever.
I don't know how you get all these guests, but you
You
get
just
them.
send them emails. That's how you do it.
Yeah,
You Google their name, and then you add this two words, contact information. Once you find it, about 1 in 20 will respond to you. 19 will just say fuck off or they just won't reply. But then you get them on and you build up a library and it starts to hold its own weight. And then as you get the library bigger and bigger, your yes rate goes up. It's very quite easy. I'm not kidding. Anyone can do it. I've been doing it for 3 years now, but it only looks like I know what I'm doing because I've been doing it for 3 years. But it's 3 years of making shit up and faking it every single day until one day it appears that I know what I'm doing.
there and giving them a chance to respond. So yeah, I like what you're doing. And now that I'm retired, I got
You got no
nothing but
excuses.
free time.
You got no
No
excuses.
excuse.
And you're friends with
Yeah,
me. I'll walk you right through
that's
it.
true.
I I
Well, I like the sound of it.
I learned this shit by just trial and painful error. You didn't even have to do
Yeah,
that. I'll walk you through it. And then, but no, but that's the other. It's like, what's the most? Like you gave political speeches, right? There's a limit to the number of people that you talk to, right? You're at a restaurant or a fucking what country club or some shit talking to people. There's a limit to that. There's no limit to this, right? This
I know
episode
it.
might get 10 views. It might get 1,000.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen, and I watch you and the other guy, not McCullough, but the other doctor that you were
Dr.
talking
Malone.
to the other day. The 18th of January was my anniversary from leaving the federal government, and it feels good. I almost feel somewhat justified because I didn't take the vax, and they were pushing and prodding and all this sort of stuff trying to get me to do it, and that was a factor in me leaving. I walked away from a gang of money and a gang of power and a really nice office. Do I miss those things? Not enough to not having left, because now these people who have taken the vaccine
Just dropping dead.
are somewhat speechless. They're yeah, man. That guy, that football player the other day, 22 years old, and he didn't even take a hard hit. And we're going to see a whole lot more of that, and a lot of that is not being broadcast. So I don't want to make anybody angry or anything like
Sure.
that, but big pharma, and big tech, and all these people are making all this money, and they really.
I don't know why anyone in their right mind thinks that the corporate greed that we have known factually exists for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
There's just like a form of amnesia that just started 2 years ago that said, now it's not here anymore.
Well, if you notice, all the television advertisements are from Pfizer.
Paid for by
Brought to you by
Pfizer.
Pfizer. Brought to you by Pfizer. And as I remember, 5 years ago, they had to settle the largest
The
corporate
single biggest
lawsuit.
pharma lawsuit, yeah, 3.2 billion.
And we trust these people?
But the
I
people
don't.
that are pushing it harder than it's fucking bewildering because the people that are pushing it harder than anyone else are the same people that 12 years ago were occupying Wall Street. Rightfully so,
Yeah.
because there was a bunch of wealth aggregated in the hands of a tiny few. When did it become a
And
liberal idea?
yeah, I question everything. Nobody gets a pass in my world. And if you notice, if I'm not mistaken, last week was the week of Davos. So they're
Yeah,
over here making corporate decisions on our lives, and most people don't even know what Davos is.
yeah,
Absolutely crazy. I remember it was Rebel News. They had accosted, well, maybe accosted. They put a microphone in the face of one of the Pfizer corporate people, and the guy literally
CEO
ran from him.
Albert Bourla, yeah, the CEO of Pfizer.
Yeah, you know these people.
Yeah,
And so the issue today is that why are we not more skeptical? Why are people just letting this go? I'm not one to just let things go, and I don't think you are either. So maybe I need to start that podcast.
start it, and then there's like a moment. They're not a moment, but there is a process of truth. If guy, right, they can make a compromise with you, then you'll get the following, and that will be your mandate to run. And if like the reason I keep doing this is because more and more people watch and more people agree with it. If
Well, I
no
see your
one
numbers going.
if no one watched it and no one agreed with it, I would be like, oh, I really am a minority, in which case, A, I'm either wrong, or B, everyone else is wrong. But either way, clearly, no one wants to hear this shit, so I'll just go do something else. But if people hear it and they like it, then that's sort of like your mandate to keep going and do more of it. So if people hear you, then you're like, oh, so it's still worth fighting for. And if no one's on board with you, then you're like, oh, this place is fucked. I don't know, take care of your own. Take care of your family and, your wife and kids. Like, that's my logic behind it. And I keep going because more and more people watch it and I get overwhelmed.
You're a leader. You're an influencer. And I like to think of myself that way. My intention is, get rid of some of this corruption. And we got to bring a light to that. I mean, the best disinfectant is sunlight. And we got to bring some of the sunlight to this corruption. And that's the only way I know how to do it. So podcasting would be a good tool for me, I think.
I think you should start. Truly just start. You're going to fumble and stumble your way in the beginning and it's going to be awkward and clunky. But if you stick to it, you flush it out and it becomes smooth.
First thing I got to do is get me a cool American flag like what you got.
That's like a Walmart flag I got like 6 years ago. You can go get any flag, yeah. Just start
It
with.
looks great.
Thank you. You just literally start with whatever camera you're using right now, just whatever computer webcam you're using right now, and as a tree, just start.
I like it. I
Especially if
like
you
it.
want to, if you're gonna run for office again. I can't imagine myself, I have no desire to ever run for office. But if I did, you almost have to start your own thing, because otherwise
Yeah.
you're subject to all the other gatekeepers of welcome to this show or you're on this platform, but you gotta no, you just start your own thing. That's just the equivalent of being like your own crazy person screaming in like the town square. just
Well, let me ask you, being that you're a professional in this thing with Steven Crowder and what's his name, Ben Shapiro. What's going on there? Do you have any idea?
I don't even know that there's a thing going on.
Well, from what I understand,
I know both those
Shapiro.
names. Is there a thing going? Oh, let me Google it.
Well, they're both conservative pundits, and somebody offered somebody, is pretty interesting to listen to. But I don't understand it all deeply. But I just figured you would know since and you're in that circle.
Ben Shapiro, Stephen Crowder, feud gone wild, clash over. Oh, this is probably all fucking fabricated, right? Well, a scandal is always right. It's in music
Yeah.
and anything. It's always good to have unless it's a legitimate beef of like people that hate. They're both Ben Shapiro and Crowder. They both have their own conservative media. This is all horseshit. That's my 2 cents. It's horseshit.
Oh,
The very fact that you and I are now talking about it, and I Googled it in every news article, this is free PR. See, they're smarter than
that's
me
what
because I'm trying to have
they
genuine
got.
discussions. What I should be doing is starting beef with Bernie. I should have you on here, and I should be saying that Ben Shapiro bombed my house last night and Steven Crowder killed my dog. That's what I should be doing.
Why do people love negativity so much?
Why
I
do
don't
they?
get it.
I don't know. It's our chimpanzee reptilian mind. We want from the vast majority of the history of man, we've just been living boring lives, just gathering wheat and starting fires. And then someone comes in and they're like, "Did you hear Sheila cheated on Bill?" And you're like, "OMG." But our minds are still wired for it. So we're in this hyper advanced world with 747s and Uber Eats and microphones and Xboxes, but we still have these just dipshit brains that are like, drama, drama, and that's what it is, and that's what they're doing. They're plugging into it, and that's why Bernie, they are getting
I just,
8-figure checks, and I am stuck in a bedroom screaming at a camera. They should be what's going on. I will look into it after this because I am a stupid chimp. Now I'm
don't
interested.
don't
Now,
fall for it.
now I'm like, what's
This is
going on? Why are they mad at each other? What is this? All the while not paying attention to the tenth of a trillion dollars going in black weapons to Ukraine, which is just ending up in other war-torn nations. Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, angry. We are falling
yeah,
for it.
that's
We're falling for the bread and circus, Bernie. Don't do it.
yep. I should know better. I should know better.
You brought it up on my.
But
You're an agent of them, aren't you? You brought this shit up on my show. You're sidetracking it. You bastard.
look at me.
The
I shouldn't
whole
even brought that.
the whole book is bullshit. This was a Trojan horse to get on here, and you got a check from Shapiro, didn't you?
Don't know him yet.
You motherfucker.
Don't know him
I
yet.
should have smelled you a mile away. No, I don't know what's going on. Maybe there's something real. I don't know, but I do know that
I don't know, man. They
I
were throwing mud at each other, and I
there
was
is
making some.
somebody's cashing in on this. We think it's conflict. I guarantee you, they're looking at all their metrics. They're tracking their views, their clicks. I guarantee you, they're noticing a little bit of a feud bump in their profits. They're
Everybody gets
pocketing some
paid.
extra greenbacks. I'm not
I
making
feel
shit. I'm not making shit. I should be emailing them saying I will take sides. I will be a mercenary in this war of drama. Give me a
throw
paycheck.
some shit at them. There you go.
Throw some
Tell
money at
them.
me. I'll
Yeah,
accuse.
I like
I will make false rape accusations. I don't give a shit.
it. You're funny, man. That's why I like being on this show. We can just shoot the shit. If
Well,
you were here having a beer with me, we'd have the same conversation.
that's that. Well, that is, I guess, what I do like about this is there is no like, and we're here today with Birdie Flappin. That is
Divide and conquer.
that is what I do have though. Is like, I can go to bed knowing that I'm on like a more serious note. I can go to bed knowing that I'm me. That there is no
Yeah, you didn't
yeah.
sell out.
Yeah,
And that's why I'm, like I said, back to the book. That's why I'm doing this, selling this book, because I don't want to sell out. Man, people have real estate developers have already sniffed me out and said, "Hey, they're expecting me to run again." People, "Hey, come, let's have lunch." And no, we're not going to have lunch. I'm not interested in selling out. I got a mission, and 100 years from now, all this won't matter, but I will know that I did the right thing. So
well,
that's important.
that's the very end thing is we're all fucking dead anyway. So what footprint do you want to leave on this planet?
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well,
Yeah.
hey Bernie, with that, let's wrap this one up. Um, Guys, go get the book. I'll put it in the description. I'll put your website, your social media, all that good stuff in the description. Bernie, closing thoughts.
First of all, thanks for having me.
Of course.
Thanks for putting up with my dauntless crusader
I
personality.
don't give a fuck.
I'm not going to stop. And there's a lot more out here like me. My boy Vince Kreb, I put you in the same category. There's a bunch of good conservative people, whether they're Republicans or Democrats or independents. We got to forget about all these labels and just go out and do what's right for the American people. And that's what I'm all about. And I know you're the same way.
Hell yeah, brother. Lieutenant Colonel Bernie Flowers. The book, Black Values Matter, will be in the description. Go check them out. Go read the book. It's a short book. You can knock it out.
Pick it up from Amazon.
Pick
It's
it
all
up.
good.
Give Bernie some money. Don't give any money to Shapiro and Crowder. They've got fuck enough. Go give some money to Bernie. Or better yet, give some to me. I don't even have a book, but go give some to me. Sir, God bless America. Much love, Bernie. Till next time, my friend. Take care, everybody.
Recording
God bless.
stopped.
Stay safe out there. Peace.